So you're in the market for an adventure tourer. You don't want something that's too off-roady, but you still want something exotic. And you don't want to have to sell a kidney in the process of getting one. Right up until this point, the market had nothing to offer you. Of course, now we have this. It's called the Benelli TRK 502, and the first question you're probably going to ask me is it really an adventure tourer? Well, let's go through our patent checklist. Beefy front forks with lots of travel. Beaky nose and tall visor. Long range fuel tank, USB charging. Comfy seat and a lot of place to mount your luggage. Now powering this behemoth is a 500cc parallel twin motor with a 360-degree crank. It makes about 47 horsepower and 45 Nm of torque. Now on paper, that seems like more than enough. And all of this can be yours for 5.1 lakhs off the showroom floor. So at this point you're probably wondering, what's the catch? Well, for starters, this behemoth weighs in at 235 kilos. And that's almost BMW 1250 GS territory, which is a lot for a 500cc motorcycle. And then there's this analog digital display, which on paper sounds good, but in reality it looks a little dated. Of course, Benelli's quality overall has improved significantly since their re-entry into the market, but one could have wished for a little more quality on the weld seams. But when it comes to motorcycles, you really have to be in the saddle to understand what it's like. So it's time for me to get geared up and see what the TRK 502 is really all about. So now that we're on board the Benelli TRK 502, let me tell you a little bit about how it rides. The first thing you're going to notice is that the seat is really comfortable. At 800 millimeters, it's not really very high, and it has plenty of cushion to make your ride comfortable. The windshield works fine and does a great job of keeping wind blasts out of your face, making rides a whole lot easier. The one thing I don't like though is how this 500cc engine is set up. Well, for one, it has that 360-degree crank, which is more suited for high revving motorcycles rather than high torque motorcycles, something that you're going to need when you're adventure touring, especially if you have a lot of climbs and descents to do while you are in the process of touring. One of those things that you're really going to miss is the low down torque and the low down grunt that you really expect from an adventure tourer. But that said, the long legs really make it easy to ride on the highway. It can go in 6th gear from as little as 60 kilometers an hour to as high as 170. And that's really nice.
Another thing that really holds the Benelli back is its 235 kilo curb weight, which is a lot. And you can feel the engine straining itself just to keep this massive behemoth moving. However, that weight comes back into your favor when you approach a corner, even though it sits quite high. 200 mm off the ground to be precise. The weight adds some semblance of stability. Of course, you're not going to be setting any records up Pikes Peak, but it's enough to keep you confident and get you through the sharpest of corners without having to think that much. Another thing I like is the dedicated ABS button, which allows you to turn the ABS completely off. But I'd remind you that this is a very heavy motorcycle, and the ABS does come in handy in bringing it to a stop. So I would recommend you take some time before you turn the ABS completely off.
Now, after having spent the entire day riding the Benelli 502 through some really interesting weather, the answer to the question as to whether this is an adventure tourer is a resounding yes. This is the kind of motorcycle you can take on the highway, and you can even use it for some light off-roading. But if off-roading is what you want to do, Benelli do have a more off-road oriented version of the 502 called the 502X, which we will be reviewing on the show very soon, so be sure to catch that. As for the 502, considering the 5.15 lakh floor price, I think this is a very interesting machine with a very strong value proposition.